wild. WNBA All-Star Weekend. It's supposed to be the star of all stars. All the big dogs is out. A'ja Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, Breanna Stewart, everybody's out. The big dogs are out. You got the rookie, you got Angel Reese, Miss Me Too. All of the stars are here. And look at this news. The get-in price for the WNBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis has dropped 48% from $121 to just $64 after news broke that Caitlin Clark won't be playing. Uh-oh.
Hold up. Did you just hear what I heard? 48%. That's not a typo. That's not fake news. That's the sound of an entire league's economic foundation cracking in real time. I'm Jax Riley, and I've been filtering through the digital noise around Caitlin Clark's All-Star Weekend absence, and what I found isn't just about one player missing one event. This is about the most uncomfortable truth the WNBA doesn't want you to see. Before we dive into this economic earthquake, hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to show you is the kind of investigative analysis other channels won't touch. They're too busy with feel-good stories, while the real story is hidden in the numbers. Here's what we're going to uncover together. First, the exact moment everything changed, and how one injury announcement triggered a market panic that exposed 25 years of league vulnerabilities. Then, we're connecting the dots between Clark's unprecedented drawing power and why 3 regular season fever games outperformed the league's showcase event. And finally, the prediction nobody's talking about: what this economic dependency means for the WNBA's future when Clark inevitably retires. But let me start with the moment that should have been Caitlin Clark's coronation as the undisputed face of women's basketball.
You guys know now who won.
Okay.
Drum roll.
Okay.
And the winner is Caitlin Clark.
July 2025. The ESPYs. Caitlin Clark beats out A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Napheesa Collier for WNBA Player of the Year. These aren't just good players. These are generational talents who've carried the league for years. But Clark's first-year impact was so seismic that even the establishment had to acknowledge what everyone with eyes could see. This should have been the beginning of her victory lap. All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, her adopted hometown. The ETO three-point contest where she'd already proven herself as one of the most lethal shooters in basketball history. Everything was perfectly scripted for Clark to own July 2025. Then reality hit with a groin injury that changed everything. Now, here's where other content creators focused on the heartbreak story. Poor Caitlin, missing her moment. Lexi Hull, stepping up with emotional dog loss narrative. Very touching, very engaging, but they missed the real story completely. The numbers don't lie, and the numbers are terrifying. I've been following the digital breadcrumbs, and what emerges isn't just about one player's absence. It's about an entire league's dangerous addiction to singular star power that makes previous eras look balanced by comparison.
Story we have been following throughout the past 2 days surrounds a superstar herself, Caitlin Clark, the WNBA star, the Indiana Fever star, Caitlin Clark. She's going to miss all the action on the court.
Think about what that commentator just said. All the big dogs are out. A'ja Wilson, the reigning finals MVP. Sabrina Ionescu, arguably the most skilled point guard in the world. Breanna Stewart, a multiple-time champion and Olympic gold medalist. Angel Reese, the rookie sensation with her own massive following. All of them are there, the cream of the WNBA elite. And ticket prices still collapsed by nearly half. Let that sink in for a moment. But here's what they missed in that analysis, and this is where my investigation gets interesting. Those ticket prices didn't just drop randomly. I've been reading the signals from secondary market data, and the decline started within hours of Clark's injury announcement. Not days, not weeks, hours. What does that tell us? It tells us that despite 25 years of building stars, despite having arguably the most talented roster in All-Star history, the market made an instant calculation. Without Caitlin Clark, this event lost nearly half its value. But that's just the beginning of this economic earthquake. Let me hit you with some transparency here because this is rumor territory based on digital chatter. But the online conversation suggests something even more disturbing. Multiple forum discussions point to corporate sponsors quietly reducing their activation budgets once Clark's absence was confirmed. Official sources won't tell you this, but if you follow the digital breadcrumbs, a different picture emerges of behind-the-scenes panic that went way beyond just disappointed fans. The temperature of the online conversation suggests that major brands had built their entire all-star marketing strategies around Clark's presence. When she went down, it wasn't just ticket sales that took a hit. It was the entire commercial ecosystem that had grown around her gravitational pull. And this brings us to the viewership catastrophe that really exposes how deep this dependency.
NBA's All-Star game went down 36%. That is a lot. That's more than a third from last year. Last year was over 3.4 million people, and it went down to 2.1. Now, you could say is it success? Yeah, for women's sport, that's still a lot of people. But at the same time, it really isn't a success because think about it. It's the only sport playing. It's the only game that's going. And you only can draw back.
Runs 36%, from 3.4 million viewers to 2.1 million. Now, some apologists want to frame 2.1 million as still successful. Second highest all time, they'll say. But context is everything, and the context here is devastating. This was the only major sporting event happening that weekend. No NFL, no NBA playoffs, no March Madness. The WNBA had a completely clear runway to capture America's sports attention, with their best roster ever assembled, and they still lost over 1 million viewers because one player wasn't there. But here's the nuclear revelation that nobody's talking about. 3 random Indiana Fever regular season games in 2025 drew higher viewership than the league's showcase all-star event. Let me repeat that, because it sounds impossible. Regular season basketball games featuring Caitlin Clark outperformed the WNBA's Super Bowl equivalent. That's not just unusual. That's unprecedented in professional sports history. Think about what this means structurally. The All-Star Game is supposed to be the sport's marketing pinnacle. It's where casual fans tune in, where the league showcases its best talent, where future growth is built. But Clark's gravitational pull is so strong that her regular Tuesday night games against random opponents draw bigger audiences than the sport's biggest stage. This isn't sustainable, and league executives know it. Now, let me connect some dots that the other coverage completely missed, because this is where the investigation gets really interesting. Remember the timing here. Clark's injury wasn't just bad luck. It happened during one of the most contentious periods in WNBA history. While fans were focused on the emotional storylines, the league was in the middle of brutal CBA negotiations that exposed massive financial pressure points. Angel Reese called the league's Idut Satadis proposals disrespectful. Players were openly discussing work stoppages. Revenue sharing was a major sticking point. And right in the middle of these financial negotiations, the league's biggest revenue generator goes down with an injury. The timing couldn't have been Worse for league negotiators trying to argue that the WNBA had diversified its drawing power beyond any single player. Clark's absence didn't just hurt ticket sales, it obliterated their entire bargaining position. But that brings us to the scariest question nobody's asking. What happens when this isn't just a temporary injury? Official sources won't tell you this, but the online chatter is too loud to ignore about Clark's injury pattern this season. She's missed over 10 games due to various soft tissue issues. The narrative about her fighting through pain for weeks sounds heroic, but medical reality suggests something different. I've been filtering through the noise, and the signals point to concerning durability questions for a player whose explosive style puts tremendous stress on her body. Groin injuries, particularly in basketball, have a nasty habit of becoming recurring problems. So what happens if this becomes a chronic issue? What happens when Clark's inevitable retirement comes sooner rather than later? The All-Star Weekend. Collapse gives us a preview, and it's not pretty. The WNBA has built its growth strategy on quicksand. Here's what the temperature of the online conversation reveals about the league's real position. They've successfully grown from 500,000 viewers to 1+ million average viewership. And everyone celebrates this as sustainable progress. But strip away Clark's games, and those numbers look very different. This isn't just about star power. Every league has stars. This is about dependency that borders on dangerous for the sport's long-term health. Michael Jordan elevated the NBA, but the league didn't collapse when he retired because they'd built sustainable infrastructure around multiple stars and storylines. The WNBA's Clark dependency makes the NBA's Jordan era look diversified by comparison. And here's where it gets really uncomfortable for league executives. I've been reading the signals from merchandise data, and the pattern is stark. Sophie Cunningham gained over 1 million social media followers overnight after defending Clark. Her jerseys sold out within 24 hours. The Tres Leches merchandise featuring Clark, Hull, and Cunningham became a viral phenomenon. But notice the pattern? Every success story connects back to Clark. Cunningham's popularity exploded because she protected Clark. Hull's breakout moment came replacing Clark. Even Angel Reese's marketing campaigns gain attention primarily through Clark rivalry narratives. The league has accidentally created an ecosystem where every narrative, every breakout star, every viral moment somehow traces back to one player's gravitational pull. That's not sustainable growth. That's a house of cards waiting for the inevitable win. And that's mainstream media acknowledgement that this story has crossed over from sports entertainment into legitimate economic news. When injury updates about a second-year WNBA player are leading news broadcasts, you know the dependency has reached critical levels. So, what's the prediction nobody wants to hear? Based on the digital temperature and market signals I'm tracking, the WNBA has approximately 3 to 5 years to diversify their revenue and attention away from Clark dependency before facing a potential crisis that could set women's basketball back a decade. Here's what they should be doing but aren't: building storylines and marketing campaigns that can survive without Clark's involvement, developing broadcasting strategies that highlight multiple stars equally, creating controversy and rivalry narratives that don't require Clark as the central figure. Instead, they're doubling down on Clark-centric content because it works in the short term, even though it makes the long-term problem worse. The most damning evidence? Look at how other sports handle star absences. When LeBron James was injured during the Lakers' prime years, NBA ratings dropped, but not by 36%. When Tom Brady missed games, NFL viewership declined but didn't collapse. These leagues had built enough depth and storyline diversity to weather individual absences. The WNBA's all-star collapse proves they haven't reached that sustainability threshold, and the clock is ticking. But here's what really keeps me up. At night following this story, the signs suggest Clark herself might be aware of this dependency and the pressure it creates. The transparency of the online conversation suggests that Clark's social media activity has shifted toward promoting other players and storylines more aggressively than typical superstars. Is this organic team spirit or strategic awareness that her individual success is tied to the league's overall health? We might be watching the first superstar in sports history who understands that her own legacy depends on making herself less essential to her sport's survival. So, what does this mean for you as a fan of the WNBA and women's basketball? First, enjoy the Clark era while it lasts, because the numbers suggest it's more fragile than anyone wants to admit. Second, start paying attention to other storylines and players now, because the league's future depends on developing fan bases that can survive beyond any single player. And third, understand that what we're witnessing isn't just basketball history. It's a real-time case study in how modern sports stardom works when social media and traditional media amplify individual impact beyond any previous scale. The economic earthquake, triggered by Clark's injury, wasn't just bad luck. It was a stress test that revealed fundamental structural problems the WNBA must address before it's too late. That brings us to the inevitable question about what happens next. The league has two choices: continue building everything around Clark and hope her career lasts long enough to establish sustainable infrastructure, or start the painful process of diversification that might reduce short-term growth, but ensures long-term survival. Based on the signals I'm reading, they're choosing option one, and that might be the most dangerous gamble in modern sports history. What do you think? Is the WNBA's Clark dependency a short-term growth strategy that will naturally evolve, or a dangerous addiction that threatens the sport's future? Drop your analysis in the comments, because this is exactly the kind of meta-narrative discussion that drives real change in how we understand modern sports economics. Hit that like button. If this investigation opened your eyes to economic realities other channels won't touch, share this with anyone who thinks they understand the WNBA's growth story, because the real numbers paint a very different picture than the mainstream narrative. And subscribe with notifications on, because this is just the beginning of my investigation into the economics of modern women's basketball. Next week, I'm diving into the CBA negotiation details that Clark's injury inadvertently exposed. And, trust me, those revelations will make this economic earthquake look like a warm-up. Until then, keep questioning the narratives, keep following the numbers, and remember, in sports economics, the most important stories are always hiding in plain sight.